Random House Audiobooks presents A Coach's Life by Dean Smith with John Kilgo and Sally Jenkins. Read for you by Eric Conger.
I'm a Kansan, even though I've lived most of my adult life in North Carolina. I speak like a Kansan. I'm not quick to say aloud what's on my mind. I say what I think, just not everything I think. Once upon a time, as they say, a family named Smith settled in Kansas, and unlike some of their neighbors, managed not to become farmers. 96% of the land in the state of Kansas is devoted to farming, but farmers actually make up a small percentage of the people who live there. I'm the son of school teachers. My mother, Vesta Edwards, taught at all levels, from elementary school reading to college psychology courses. She was also our church's organist. My father, Alfred Smith, was a teacher and coach of the football, basketball, and track teams at Emporia High, as well as a church deacon. Teaching and coaching was all I ever thought about as a profession because it struck me that in addition to being very good people, my parents were also deeply happy ones. It seems fitting to me that Emporia is now the home of the National Teachers Hall of Fame. I grew up in a small stucco bungalow that was built by my parents with the help of my mother's father, a cement mason, who also poured the foundation for one of the local Baptist churches. The house cost $3,500 when they put it up in 1936, which was actually a substantial price in those days. By way of comparison, you could wander down to Gold's Cafe and buy a chicken dinner with salad, 3 vegetables, and a roll for 35 cents. You got a choice of iced tea or coffee and dessert, too. 5 of us lived in the 2-bedroom house, which had just a single bath with hardwood floors and a second-floor sleeping porch, which became my room. My sister Joan was born the year before the stock market crash in 1928, and I was born in 1931. And between us and my grandmother Edwards, who moved in with us when she was 72, the house was pretty crowded. That was what you did in those days. You took care of your grandparents. Emporia was a town of only about 14,000, but it had prosperity and a cultural life unusual for a place of that size because we had 2 colleges, Kansas State Teachers College, later Emporia State, on the east side of town, and the Presbyterian College of Emporia, on the west side of town. Emporia was the 3rd largest feeding station for cattle and sheep in the nation at the time, and the Santa Fe Railroad ran right through town. Looking back on it, my mother was uncommonly strong-opinioned and well-educated for a woman of her place and time. At first glance, she appeared quiet, perhaps, and she usually had the look of someone about to offer you a piece of apple pie. When you looked closer, you saw a woman who radiated intellectual energy. Her eyes were piercing and suggested that she didn't tolerate nonsense. My mother was meticulous, highly organized, punctual, and relentlessly frugal. The opposite of me, with the exception of punctual. She handled all the household finances like a drill sergeant, to my frustration. She got her master's degree from Emporia State in educational psychology in 1946, same year Joan graduated from high school, and she was an educator in the true sense of the word. She had one uncompromising rule. I had to read a book a week. I tried to satisfy her with sports books. Later, when I was in the 9th grade, she became superintendent of schools for Lyon County. The gentleman who had occupied the position resigned before his term was up, and it's an indication of the regard in which my mother was held that she was chosen to complete his unexpired term. After serving 18 months, she had a chance to run for the job and win it in an election. But she said she wasn't the type to run for political office, so she went back to what she was best at, which was educating. My father matched my mother's strong personality, although he also seemed unassuming. He was measured, slow to anger, soft-spoken, and easy to smile. But he was also implacable. He had a way of persuading people to do what he wanted them to. When he and my mother were in their 80s and disagreed over whether to move to North Carolina. My mother didn't want to leave Kansas. I predicted to my sister Joan, "He'll win. It may take a while, but he'll win." And he did. They moved to Springmore Retirement Facility in Raleigh. I have my father's hooked nose, sharp chin, and straight line of a mouth. I think I got a lot more, too. My father once said, his mother taught him organization and to work hard. I gave him athletic desire and atmosphere. I hope so. My father was the first real coach I ever knew, and I'm sure I was shaped by him in ways I'm not even conscious of. He taught hygiene and physical education, and in the afternoons he coached football, basketball, baseball, and track. He became head coach for Emporia High in the year I was born, 1931, and the job came with certain pressures. In those days, perhaps even more than now, the entire town was involved with whether the high school team won or lost. Emporia High was a relatively small school of about 600 students at any given time, and we had to compete against much larger schools from the big cities like Topeka and Wichita, in which we took a certain pride. My father had 3 different classrooms and 4 different teams to keep abreast of. I was the kind of kid who was always on the sidelines, pestering the older players and trying to shoot the ball on one end of the court while they practiced on the other end, until finally somebody'd run me off. I memorized all of the jersey numerals of more than 30 guys on the football team, and on the team car trips, the players would quiz me and make sure I could match up names to the numbers. 34, they'd holler. Jack Snow, I'd shout back. Some people have given me kind but undue praise for integrating North Carolina's basketball team in the early 1960s. My father was the family's true reformer, however. In 1934, he chose to play a black teenager, the son of a janitor who swept the floors at the local bank, whom he had known as a junior high school student. It's hard to evoke just how strange and unreasoning the old barriers of race were. There was only one junior high school and one high school in town, so all of Emporia's children were educated together, regardless of color. But that often ended when you stepped outside of the classroom. We didn't have any black members at our Baptist church, and we were told by my parents that was wrong. In the summers, we did play recreation league softball with a relatively diverse population of Mexicans and black kids, and I remember my parents speaking to us about that and insisting that they be treated fairly and like any other children. My parents were determined that we see every person as valuable, unique, and particular, and equal before our Creator. In 1934, Paul Terry entered the 10th grade at Emporia High. My father had known Paul throughout his time at Lowther Junior High School because he taught Paul physical education from the 7th through 9th grade. When Paul got to Emporia High, my father suggested that if he wanted to try out for the varsity, he'd be welcome. Paul wasn't trying to break any barriers. He just loved the game. As soon as word got around that Paul had joined the team, some people in town started getting upset. Now, I'm told that my father received calls from the town school board asking him what he thought he was doing, and the superintendent of the Eastern Kansas Athletic Conference also raised objections. But my father was firm about it. Paul was a member of the team. He was a guard, a sixth man who came off the bench. Paul's own father almost forbade him to play because he knew what it would mean for his son to be on that team. Charles Terry was a janitor at the Emporia Bank. His mother was a homemaker, and they knew much better than Paul, and probably even my father, what the potential repercussions were. But Paul wanted to play so badly, Charles finally relented. For the most part, the white kids and Paul got along easily enough. I don't think my father would have permitted anything else. But nobody, save for Paul, can know what he was really feeling on the bench, or on road trips, or on the court when the opposing crowds and players spat epithets at him. One day my father received a Western Union telegram. It was sent by the principal of a school in Chanute, Kansas, that Emporia was scheduled to play in an upcoming game. "Leave the Negro boy at home," the telegram said, "or don't come." My father had no intention of leaving Paul behind. They packed up, went to Chanute, and walked out onto the floor. They went ahead and played.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?